Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the ELForum Leadership Speak series. This series, we are onto a very exciting topic, which is how are firms using empowerment as a competitive advantage in their organizations? And who better than a coach to start off the proceedings with us? So I have with me today a good friend, Vicky Ross, founder and owner of Vicky Ross Training from the UK, talking to us about her experiences on empowerment and the journey of empowerment. Welcome to the show, Vicky.
Hi, Ringo. Thanks for inviting me. So glad to be here.
Likewise, Vicky. Great seeing you, and it's a pleasure to have you on. And I'm sure that the audiences will enjoy listening to your experiences and your very unique journey of becoming a life coach. So, without further ado, why don't you walk us through your journey as a coach?
So, when I was in school, the last thing that I thought I would be one day is a coach, because back in my days, and I can say that because I've got it, coaching wasn't something that we recognized in regards to people and development and all of that. Coaching was only for sport. But I loved teaching, but I hated the idea of going back into school and teaching kids, because I knew what I was like. I was quite mischievous in a nice way, but I was very mischievous. And I thought, I don't want to be teaching people like me. So when I left, I initially went and followed a passion of mine, which was I studied to become a fashion designer. As you know, I come from a family where we all knit and sew and crochet, do whatever crafts, and I was really good at it. So I went and I studied that, and I actually worked in the rag trade. I learned a huge amount in the rag trade about management, which at the time I didn't appreciate because I didn't know what was coming ahead. But to cut a long story short, I left the rag trade. I did my own business, which was cutthroat. Rag race is cutthroat. And then a friend of mine said, "Oh, let's join the airline." So I said, "Yeah, why not?" I mean, we were young and carefree. So we go through the whole application. I got in, she didn't. But I was there for 2 years, but actually I stayed for 10 or just under 10. But it was there that because of the politics in South Africa at the time and all that, I climbed up the ladder quite quickly. So I became a senior cabin controller within my first 2 years, which was quite unheard of. And then I was sent on a course that was called TACT, which was Transactional Analysis and Customer Treatment. So just to give you a bit of background, I started going into personal development around about the age of 15, but more seriously after my 20s, because I had a bit of a, let's just say, colorful growing up years, with parents and divorces and all sorts of things. And I was trying to make sense out of the nonsense in life. So back in the days, we didn't have Google or YouTube or any of these kind of things that kids today have. So I used to go to this bookshop in Hillbrow, which you wouldn't dare to walk into Hillbrow today. And you would sit there for hours scouring through all the new books. And I remember one of the very first books that I bought, it was around about 87 or 88, was the Louise book, You Can Heal Your Life. And that was like, wow. I remember buying a book called Forgiveness. So I was I was reading that. And in the early 90s, I bought Tony Robinson's books of Awaken the Giant Within and Unleash Your Personal Power. And I just devoured these books and all of that kind of stuff. So I was working on myself while I was having a life, and flying around the world and, doing all the things that people do at that age. So when I did that TACT course, the first 2 days was transactional analysis. So it was all about understanding yourself, your personality, what are you bringing to work, understanding people. So it was very much about personalities, and I loved it. And then the next 2 days was about customer treatment and how to manage conflict and how to sort out, when you're 35,000 feet above the ground and hell breaks loose because a customer is not happy, you better be good at your customer service, because you become onboard entertainment. Everybody's like, watching you. And I just had a knack for it. Now, was it because of my personality, or was it because of all the books and the work that I had already been doing? I don't know. But when I finished that course, I went to my trainers and I said, I love this course and I would love to teach it. And they said, well, we've been watching you and we would love for you to come and teach it. So I thought, great. So I went through the whole sort of selection process, and the South African Airways gave me a facilitation course and a trainer's course and all of that kind of stuff. So I never stopped flying, but I used to come off the flight and then I used to go away somewhere gorgeous and beautiful at some retreat for 4 days, deliver the course, come back and get back on an aeroplane and go somewhere. And then in a very short space of time, I started... Sorry?
That was a lovely life.
It was an amazing life. I loved my life. So in a very short time after that, they also asked me to start evaluating brand new cabin crew. So I would go as a ghost passenger, and then I would evaluate them and then give them some feedback. Then I started doing onboard training, because by this stage we already had the apartheid and everything was flipping around, and the ratios of how many non-whites to whites and all of that kind of politics was going on. And there was just an influx of people that just weren't properly trained, because it wasn't the time that we had, the slow. So I started training on board, and I started training and working with people that I spotted as being potential future leaders in the airline. And then I would sit and work with them, because I knew that that's what's going to happen. So I kind of got a bit of a reputation in the airline amongst the crew that I was the one to watch out. When they would see my name on the sign-in sheet, they used to go like, oh gosh, it's her. But they would say, if you do everything right, you're going to have the most amazing flight. So we eventually left South Africa. When I got married, I nearly lost my husband twice in 6 weeks that we were married. So we decided, we're leaving for all of the above reasons. And we were fortunate. I had a Greek passport. My husband had a British passport, although he had never left South Africa. So leaving South Africa was pretty simple. We just packed our bags and we left. So, we went to Holland. That didn't work out. We came to England. And all that time, I just carried on reading books about self-development, about metaphysics, about spirituality, about philosophies. I was just constantly devouring information. Started my family, so basically I wasn't home in the beginning, but I had a few clients. I started getting clients and did some work with them. And it was at the end of 2004 that something that I put on my dream sheet, I would say, rather than a vision board, and it was to go and be at a Tony Robbins event. I walked out of there and I said to my husband, I actually know what I'm supposed to be, because all this time I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. But going there, I realized that I love serving, I love helping people, and I love empowering people, so that they can actually claim their lives and live life on their terms. And that is my biggest mission. So after that, I went and I studied NLP, and I became NLP master practitioner, licensed trainer. I used to assist Paul McKenna and Richard Bandler in all their London-based seminars for like 8 years. I did my own training events. I became a freelance trainer in London. And the thing that in the beginning, I would just take whatever the company's manual would be, and I would go and deliver that. But it always felt like meh, So very soon after that, I would kind of see the content and I think, okay, people are wanting to know about communication. And this manual is something for high school, but it's not going to teach people how to really, really communicate in a business environment and understand themselves and communicate in a way that's going to be good. So I would say to them, take this manual. It's good sort of background reading and all that. But I would go around the class and ask each person individually, what is it that they struggle with when it comes to communication? I would write that on the board, and then I would start teaching that. So out of that, I started to actually create my own training methods and my training manuals. So when I left school, I wanted to be a teacher. I never realized then that actually I'm a born teacher. If I love the topic, and I love this topic so much, All I want to do is share it. So therefore, I'm a natural speaker and trainer. So it took all of that for me to one day go, oh, I'm actually this kind of thing.
And I think
and that's how the journey started. And you know, the more I was doing it, the more I saw where I had natural talent and where I had passion and what I loved sharing. And I always found it so interesting, especially in the earlier days, because I went and I worked with directors and their teams. And to be very honest, I worked for the airline. I mean, by the time I left, I was a purser. And like I said, I used to do onboard training, product development, evaluations, and delivery of the course. But I didn't consider myself as a senior manager or director of a big company, although I suppose in its own way, you know, when you close that airplane doors, that's it. It's you. It's, you know,
exactly. So
it's the captain in you.
It kind of, segues the way you mentioned the whole aeroplane thing, and you were the boss of that aeroplane. And today's topic is very relevant. The way you kind of dovetailed your introduction is, what is your view of empowerment? What do you think empowerment means to you? And what has been your experience with empowerment?
So in very simple terms, to be empowered is to have the ability to do the things that you want. So when I start to go, well, what is it that stops people? Because then that helps me understand and helps me, deliver that. It has to do with your self-worth. So if you think that you can do something, or you deserve to do something, or you have the ability and then the confidence or whatever to do it, you're empowered, and then you can do it. Whereas when people don't understand their self-worth and they question and doubt themselves and have got anxiety and all that, they are not empowered to then go and do something that they desire. So empowerment is like, what is it that's interfering with being in your power, to be inside that power that we all actually have? So when I work with people, I see the perfect being in front of me. I see all the abilities. I see them, being able to do anything. And then I listen to the story that they have that stops them. And then I ask myself, how can I make this bridge and take this person on this journey of empowerment and reconnect them with everything that they are? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, Vicky. In the sense, I love the term self-worth, right? If you do not have self-worth, even if you're empowered, you may not leverage the powers given to you.
Well, to me, if you haven't got self-worth and you don't know who you are, so you lack that clarity about you, the empowerment that looks like empowerment is actually more ego. And it hurts people rather than grows people. So when I see managers being empowered because they've got the power to do things, but they're not internally empowered because they don't know their self-worth and, what is that mission, then they don't actually help people grow. They walk over people to get to where they want. But it's not a journey that I would recommend.
So the reason I picked this series to talk about empowerment is because we are coming to an age and a generation of people for whom empowerment is very essential. They need to be empowered. The younger generation, the Gen Z. I've lost track of what generation we are.
I know exactly.
So whatever, they're the young who are really the workforce of today and the future. I think empowerment is almost an expected, trait. And so my based on your vast experience as a coach and as a trainer and over the years, I would love you to share some anecdotal experiences of where some of your customers may have used empowerment as a competitive advantage. Give us an example how they have managed, or even in your own experience, in your own journey as a leader. I would love to hear that.
Well, the story that always jumps out at me when it comes to working with empowerment, I remember working with a senior leader, and she said to me, I want you to teach me to be the kind of manager that blah, 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 because obviously she had some ideas of what it would be like to be an effective senior manager. So what she was asking me is for me to morph her into that. And I looked at her and I said, not a chance, not even close. It's not going to happen. And she was like, but my company's hired you as my coach for the next 6 months, and this is what I want. I said to her, I don't want to mention her name, so we'll call her Mary. I said, Mary, you've got immense power within you to be the most amazing leader. Why don't you rather reconnect with that rather than go and be what you think on the outside makes a good leader? I said, let's rather talk about that. Let's look at your self-worth. Let's look at your belief systems. Let's look at your values. Let's get very clear about what your mission is in life when you work as a leader in this environment. What is it that you believe? And she was like, and she said to me right at the end, she says, I had this idea that I was going to become this other person that was a good leader. And she said, you empowered me to be so much more, but just being me and reconnecting to me that I can't even, put words to it. She says, she was totally like, wow, she never thought that. Because she didn't know her own self-value. So because she didn't know her self-value, self-worth, she thought that she had to become something else. And when I said, I'm not teaching, I'm not morphing you, I'm not going to mold you into something else, I'm going to connect you to you.
Beautiful. So if I understand you right, Vicky, you're saying empowerment at an individual level and at a team level, at an organizational level, is helping individuals connect to their own natural self and the ability to bring out their own potential, which they already possess. So it's not like you have to inject some capabilities or you got to, give them doses of some skill. It's basically they already have it. You just let them shine through with that, basically.
Yeah, so it's a double layer thing. And this is why my program is called PEM, which stands for Personal and Executive Mastery. Because there is an element of skill that I train and I teach people. So for instance, one of the things that I absolutely love training is advanced communication. And I call it advanced because when I used to look at communication, they used to teach people the dumbest things that really, I guess on some level we need to know that level of communication. But when we're really communicating to be effective, as leaders, as senior managers in a team, what we say and how we say it, especially when we're talking about problems, limitations, challenges, it's not random. Inside the words, by the way that we arrange, the patterns that we use, actually reveal our belief system and our value system. And if we are able to understand and listen and then know how to have that conversation in a very elegant way, we can help somebody resolve. And by doing that, we can help them grow. Okay. So there's a part of it that is skill, but most of it, the personal part of the mastery, is about understanding and knowing yourself and uncovering. We don't have to discover, because it's not like, hey, you know what, there's a part of me somewhere out there and I need to go and, on this mission and I need to find myself, because people use that kind of word and, I need to discover myself. We need to reconnect to what is already there, but for whatever reason through life, it got kind of covered up.
Beautiful. Now, and I'm sure I would definitely recommend, I hope, people go and check out your website and see what you can offer to them. Do you see any challenges in empowerment, any pitfalls of empowerment? At an organizational level? Because are people who are leaders, right? So they're entrepreneurial leaders. So do you see any challenges? Because some of them are entrepreneurs. So if you say, hey, go ahead and give it to them, and because many people mistake empowerment as letting people go free. What you want.
Well, yeah, and if that worked, then we would all be fine. The fact that we're not.
That would be great, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I find it so interesting. And again, it comes down to behavior. And a lot of people that go into business and then their business grows and therefore they start bringing people in and develop a team and all that. They started their business because they've got a passion, they've got a skill, they want to share that with the world, they want to expand, they want no glass ceilings, and this is how they get into business. But most of them haven't even stopped to think about the psychology of people, the behavior side of it. And I have had people sit down, well, geez, Vic, so I'm not a psychologist. And I'm going, I get that. But if you accept the role of being promoted into management, especially senior management, never mind being a director or a divisional director or something, or you decide to go into business and then, your business is growing and now you have a team and you've got to manage them. Yes, you're not a psychologist. So then you've got two things. Either you're going to educate yourself to some degree, or you're going to bring someone that is a specialist for that is not only going to teach you, but then is going to teach your team. So you can't, I see this a lot where managers will bring me in to train their team. And I'm going, and who's training you? Oh, I'm okay, I don't need training. I'm not the one that is not doing the work. And I'm like, you know what? If there's problems in your team, you really need to look at yourself first. And if I don't, or someone doesn't work with you, that is in kind of, in harmony with what we're going to do with the team, then it's not going to work. And so I've seen this so much. So the typical approach that I do is that I do one-to-one training and development, personal and the executive mastery with the company owner, the business owner, or the manager. But then with the teams, then I work with them as a group, but also work with them individually, because they also need to understand the dynamics. So the question that you were asking is, what is the problem that I see? It's like sometimes people just assume that people know. So somebody who's a very enlightened business owner sees that there is sort of a whole other layer to all of this, will maybe speak in the language that others are going, I don't know what he's talking about, or she, or they speak in a way, they have this kind of assumption, and we know what an assumption does, makes an ass of you and me, when we assume, that, they'll get it. And I see this again as a problem with managers, is that they will speak, communicate, ask, whatever it is that they're doing with their team. Some of their team members respond extremely well and are on their wavelength, and others don't. And instead of going, well, this person communicates differently and therefore I need to communicate in a more flexible way, they're kind of going, what's wrong with them? This one understood. This one gets it. This one performs. What's wrong with this one? So they straight away go into the what's wrong rather than I'm the communicator here. So I've seldom seen somebody who is empowered and then doesn't bring that into their teams. The people that I work with tend to either have heard about it, have seen something, don't quite grasp it, don't know, and therefore they bring me in to educate, develop them, and then their teams as well. Or because they also know that the best person to work with their team is somebody else. Because I've seen it where a business owner will, book them and like the whole team to come for a 3-day leadership. And when it comes to us talking about challenges, I see everybody, nobody wants to talk about the challenges that they have at work in front of the boss. They just won't do it. So I never allow it. So the people that are empowered for whatever reason, because they've read books or they've attended seminars, it's a personal interest for them, they will find ways. They get what empowerment is all about. The people that think they're empowered because they've got power can often be bullies, and they're working out of an ego.
You know what? This is a great catchphrase. Having power doesn't mean you're empowered.
Yeah.
That's a great catchphrase. A good one. So, I'm sure the audience is going to enjoy this conversation. My last question for today's session from you, Vicky, is, any suggestions that you could help an entrepreneurial leader to use empowerment to make it a competitive advantage in his or her organization? Any suggestions that you think you could, for all of us?
So again, it all comes down to how well do you know yourself? You know, the who are you? So one of the things that I teach people always is one of the really early things that we work through is self-awareness, which people go, oh, I'm self-aware. So I'm going, okay, so sit quietly and start telling me what you're thinking. Oh, I'm not thinking anything. I said, there's something going on in your head. It's not like you're not thinking. There is some thinking. If you don't have the awareness that there's thinking, that already tells me you don't have awareness. So I start teaching them about awareness. I start teaching them about how to listen to the thoughts, how to understand the unconscious mind, how to be in touch with their body. The body does not lie. You know, when I teach advanced communication, I touch on the non-verbals and I touch on the micro expressions of the face. You know, I'm not a very in-depth trainer in that, but I know enough to teach people the very, very basics. And it's so fascinating when you teach people just those little signs, how suddenly something that's always been in front of people, they now notice for the first time. So self-awareness and being aware of your environment, being aware of your response, your reaction, your tone of voice. It's so interesting when you play back to somebody and say, have you seen this? And they're like, oh my goodness, is that what I sound like? So awareness is not just about, oh, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling? But it's being aware of your space, aware of you. So I always start at that level. So I would say to any entrepreneur, you want to know what's going on. You think that somebody is not behaving well. I mean, this is a question. It's always a laugh, but there's so much truth in there. You know, when I work with managers, you know, so they're all managers and they've all got teams. And I said, okay, so you've got challenges. It's your team. And they like, you know, I said, I'm going to give you like about 5-10 minutes. You can actually complain right now and tell me some of the problems and the challenges that you have. And they'll all go, blah, blah, you know, and tell me. So I said, do you think that your team members, while they're getting dressed in the morning and having that cup of coffee or that cup of tea, are thinking of ways to piss you off when they come to work? Are they thinking, if I say this, or if I do that, or if I walk this way, or if I drop my papers, or if I don't answer that email, that will really piss my boss off and I can't wait to do that. So they all pack up laughing and they go, well, it feels that way. I said, everybody that works with you has a family, probably, or is aspiring to have a family. They have homes, they've got bills, they've got ambitions. They're people with desires, with dreams. They've got pride. They've got feelings. I said, but if they're not behaving in a way that you think is right, there is something wrong between you and them. And the first thing that you need to look at is you. What are you doing? How are you coming across? How are you speaking to them? You know, and this is where, well, we're not psychologists. I said, no, you're not. But you are responsible for the level of communication that you're getting out. If somebody's not performing and they're looking up to you for that guidance and all that, you need to figure out what is wrong. What is not happening here? And that comes from your self-awareness about how is it that I come across? How am I communicating? And just because it works with one person, it doesn't make it right. So people go, yeah, but it works with this one. I said, it still doesn't make it right. And I'm not saying that this is wrong. I'm saying that as a leader and a manager, if you want to be empowered, if you want to be successful, if you want to grow people, if you want to have flow rather than stress and overwhelm, you have to start with you. It's really that simple.
Lovely.
Take that responsibility.
So I would urge our audiences to go and check Vicky out and her website. She has awesome programs to offer. So thanks, Vicky, and I would love to see you participate more actively at the ELForum platform. It is meant for entrepreneurial leaders like yourself and myself. And so thank you so much, and thank you for your time, and I wish you all success, and hopefully we finally get to meet each other someday.
Yes, that would be really, really good, Ringo. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe to the ELForum channel.